The Game Awards has an identity crisis. The video game celebration, hosted by industry veteran Geoff Keighley, has come a long way since it was known as the VGAs back on Spike TV, but to this day has yet to decide whether it wants to be a genuine celebration of gaming culture or yet another multi-hour commercial broadcast for upcoming video games. A lot of people tune into the Game Awards exclusively for that commercial aspect, and it's not exactly hard to see why. People love a big, dramatic, hype-worthy reveal, and it's undeniably more fun to experience a reveal like that in a stage show setting where there's a heavy emphasis put on presentation. Every year, the Game Awards feels like a moment, a cultural touchstone for geeks and gamers everywhere that we haven't really gotten in the same way since E3 stopped being a thing. But when the big presentation of celebrity guests, large orchestral performances, and long cinematic trailers begins to come at the cost of celebrating the actual talent that ships these products in the first place, it becomes a problem for that intended audience of hardcore gamers. Last year, the Game Awards came under heavy fire for forcing industry veterans like Zelda creator Eiji Aonuma to, and I quote, "please wrap it up," while allowing big Hollywood A-listers like Anthony Mackie to play in the space for much longer. And listen, I'm willing to bet that I like Anthony Mackie more than most people, but what does he know about video games? I get that going over time in a rented space is a real problem, and multiple speakers getting played off the stage in one night isn't something unique to the Game Awards, but what are we doing here? It's the Game Awards. Let's talk about the games being awarded. And this alongside around half of the awards being announced awkwardly at a side table and at least one judging decision every year that elicits a strong emotional reaction from the internet has kind of led to this ongoing debate of what is the Game Awards even trying to do, and are they actually any good at it? I love Geoff Keighley, but you can really tell that he got his start in Hollywood. It feels like everything he says, both on stage and off, has been very carefully crafted by a boardroom of advisors as to not upset anyone. He never comments on the state of the industry aside from vague statements like abuse is bad. Whenever any of his shows have big backlash, he usually hand waves it away instead of addressing it directly, and while his milquetoast persona is undeniably charming on stage, it also rings kind of hollow in an industry full of figureheads with so much more authentic personality. Even if Geoff has no hand in the judging, this is very much his show, and his fascination with characters like Hideo Kojima and the ongoing pedestalization of people from Hollywood bleed through to create a very cynical air around the awards show. And that cynical air makes it really easy to cynically look at all of the show's issues. Like, why is Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC up for Game of the Year? I know it's fantastic, I know that it has a full game's worth of content, but I feel like a nomination here implies that it has the same level of artistic merit as the original Elden Ring, and I think on the basis of it being a DLC expansion for another game alone, that's not true. Also, let's not split hairs here. This isn't a game, it's DLC. Why is this a conversation? The impression I gathered from Shadow of the Erdtree's inclusion was that the Game Awards people wanted an excuse to invite the FromSoft devs back, but they couldn't or wouldn't come unless they were nominated for something. But then that just begs the question, why hasn't the Game Awards done a Best DLC award? It feels like a shoo-in. 2024 had Shadow of the Erdtree, Splatoon 3 Side Order, and a handful of big new expansions for live service titles like Diablo 4, Final Fantasy XIV, and Destiny 2, a healthy selection for a possible award. And you might think that borders too close on Best Ongoing Game, but Best Ongoing Game implies a live service aspect like seasonal content. Games get expansions outside of those, and even when there is significant overlap, like in Destiny's case, I think it would be easy enough to draw that line in the sand. And yeah, one award in a side category isn't as sexy as a clean sweep in nearly every category like Elden Ring did back in 2022, but I don't think Shadow of the Erdtree deserves that. It's not nearly as revolutionary as the base game, and a DLC has never been nominated like this before. It's not like we're in short supply of Game of the Year nominees. Dragon's Dogma 2, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Animal Well, or Silent Hill 2 easily could have filled Shadow of the Erdtree's place. And we can talk all day about whether or not the quality of Shadow of the Erdtree is comparable to these other games. It very well might be, but it's still not its own game. It reminds me of last year when they nominated Dave the Diver in the Best Indie Game category, despite the fact that it's not an indie game because it looks like what people think indie games look like. And it's like, Why are we stretching the definition for these things in the first place? Who does it benefit? Doesn't the fact that it's only being nominated on a technicality undo the success of the nomination in the first place? I absolutely agree that Shadow of the Erdtree is deserving of recognition, but does forcing the square peg through the round hole like this do anything for anyone? All it serves to do is take away recognition that could have been shown to other titles for a studio that everyone already knows is one of the best in the business. And that's far from the only thing people are complaining about when it comes to the judging this year. Persona 3 Reload is nowhere to be seen. My beloved Multiverses somehow got a nomination for Best Fighting Game over the new Under Night or Rivals of Aether, and College Football 25 is the most I have heard people talk about this genre in years, yet somehow didn't get nominated for Best Sports Title. I know that the likelihood of everybody agreeing on something is basically zero, but when this many people are so sure that something is afoot, it's a cause for concern, don't you think? The main defense that I've been seeing for this is that the Game Awards isn't trying to be an actual award show, and more so just an E3 for the winter time. The game announcements are the big deal, the judging and competition aspect is secondary because we have other shows for that. And while I can definitely see the argument, let's not pretend that the Game Awards has ever been known for its stellar game lineup. There are usually some heaters, but we've all seen this image. The Game Awards has become famous for game announcements for the most nothing games that you'll never hear about again, or 6-minute long cinematics that tell you nothing about how the games will actually play. Every single one being presented by Geoff with the same sincerity. And this is the identity crisis I was talking about. The Game Awards wants to be this serious presentation with big industry veterans and huge production, but it's also quite pessimistically come to the conclusion that a lot of gamers won't really take the time to engage with it unless it has that undercurrent of hype. And looking at the popularity of other industry events like this, I can't say I disagree with them. The Game Awards has to be this big show chocked full of announcements because that's what draws the casual gamers. But it also has to be at least somewhat of a respectful awards show because that's what draws the developers, who at any other time of the year would just take their announcements and do their own digital broadcast. They want to have their cake and eat it too, be a big award show where everyone comes to celebrate, and a big commercial for upcoming titles, taking money from and making buddy-buddy with developers. And for as long as they don't fully commit to either idea, there will be discourse surrounding the Game Awards. So if I dislike so much about the Game Awards, why do I even care? If the show isn't going to try and maintain a veil of legitimacy, why do I even bother watching live? Surely whatever big announcements I could just find out about afterwards, right? And while it's true that the Game Awards is a fundamentally flawed stage in terms of raw entertainment value or legitimate gaming criticism, that's not why I'm watching. I watch for moments like this.
And the game of the year is Baldur's Gate 3.
Elden Ring.
God of War.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Listen, it's become incredibly clear to me over the years that the powers that be over at the Game Awards have their heads up their asses. Their constant bending of the rules and creation of categories like Best Family Game that seem to only exist so they can separate Nintendo from the other companies is proof enough of that. Fan voting creates an atmosphere of it all just being a popularity contest, and even though that supposedly only accounts for 10% of the final scoring, I'd have a hard time disagreeing with you if you told me that they just give the win to whoever benefits the award show the most. But when they mess up so frequently, it makes it that much more satisfying when they get it right. When the Game Awards hits and creates an emotional moment, it hits. However flawed it may be in execution, this is one of, if not the biggest stage for gaming, and it gives mainstream voice to a community that would otherwise not have it, and that allows for some pretty great moments to unfold on stage. Christopher Judge accidentally giving a 10-minute speech that was only enhanced by the music trying to play him off, Ryan Green's speech after That Dragon Cancer won Games for Impact, the post-mortem celebration of Satoru Iwata, Geoff Keighley publicly calling out Konami for not allowing Hideo Kojima to accept an award for Metal Gear Solid 5, the subsequent return of Kojima for him to finally accept that reward, everything about Joseph Fares, Neil Newman quoting one of Baldur's Gate 3's most iconic lines while holding back tears during his speech, Nintendo's Reggie Fils-Aimé, PlayStation's Sean Layden, and Xbox's Phil Spencer joining the stage as equals, the Game Awards orchestra, and their medleys of all the Game of the Year nominees every year. Seriously, that's my favorite favorite part of the show. Even outside of the awards and announcements, they provide a spectacle that's very hard to hate. The live musical performances, the platforming of industry figureheads, and even the celebrity special guests, when chosen well, can be very charming in their own right. The Game Awards are messy, and community sentiment for the event is at an all-time low, but I'm more than happy to trudge through that mess for those genuine moments in an industry that doesn't have as many big events like this. The Game Awards are gaming's Academy Awards, and just like the Oscars, the judging is done by self-absorbed snobs, and so much of the runtime is dedicated to stupid bullshit no one cares about, but we all still watch because we love the games and we want to see their moment in the sun. But unlike the Oscars and their laundry list of hosts, I firmly believe that Geoff Keighley really cares about the final product. He's been attached at the hip to this industry forever now, and with the upcoming Game Awards being the 10-year anniversary of the show in its current state, I remain optimistic that he's taken all the criticism thrown his way over the years to heart. No one would willingly throw themselves to the wolves of the gaming community so consistently unless they truly loved it, so come December 12th, I will be watching. I promise you that much, Geoff. And until showtime, I'm going to be listening to the Game Awards Orchestra playlist on loop. I want to say my favorite one is the one from 2017. Watching the band pivot into Super Mario Odyssey's Jump Up Superstar puts a smile on my face every time. See ya!